My name is Andrés Vera. I'm with Wiki Education. Again, welcome to Gaps in Growth, Enhancing Latino, Latinx, and Latina, and Latin American content on Wikipedia. As you might be aware, Wiki Education is the bridge between academia and Wikipedia. We have two main programs here that we support, and our flagship program is the Wikipedia Student Program, where faculty members have their students contribute to Wikipedia as a classroom assignment, and we support you on getting that happening. And then we also have the Scholars and Sciences program, where we engage subject matter experts to learn themselves how to contribute to Wikipedia. If you'd like to learn more about the Scholars and Scientists program, visit learn.wikiedu.org. And if you'd like to learn more about joining the Wikipedia student program, visit teach.wikiedu.org. Just a few notes before we begin. During our discussion, please go ahead and add your questions to the Q&A box. You can find the Q&A box on your Zoom menu bar. We'll have time at the end for questions from the audience. If you do have questions, though, during the session, please, and it comes up, please go ahead and just add it there, and I'll make sure to get your questions answered. And then, without further ado, I would love to have our panelists introduce themselves. Please share with us your role and where you're joining us from. Go ahead, you can keep it short so that we can also get deeper into these questions. But why don't we go ahead and start with Oscar. Oscar, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Thank you, Andres. Thank you, Colleen, and thank you, WikiEdu Foundation, for the invitation. My name is Oscar Costero, pronounced he and him. I'm originally from Venezuela, from Caracas, Venezuela, and emigrated to North Washington State around 2 years ago as a refugee. Right now, as I'm a permanent resident, but I don't know if I'm going to stay in this country because everything that is happening. I'm being involved with the Wikimedia movement for around 20 years. I started building the Wikimedia Venezuela chapter in Venezuela. I was the founder, the executive director, and everything for around 10 years. Then I worked for the Wikimedia Foundation as a regional ambassador for Latin America for around 4 years. And I've been working with the WikiLatinos project for the last year and a half, trying to build a Latino presence in Wikipedia, both in English and Spanish. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Oscar. Alma, would you please go next?
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Alma López, and I am here in Los Angeles, where we are currently under attack by Trump and his administration. I teach at UCLA. I am a Chicana artist. I was born in Mexico and raised here in Los Angeles. I am very fortunate to teach for Chicanx and Central American Studies and also LGBTQ studies at UCLA, and I teach art-related courses. And so I'm very happy to be able to join all of you here.
We're so grateful. Thank you, Alma. Marina, would you please introduce yourself next?
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see all of you. My name is Marina Corrales. I am a student at Santa Clara University. Last week, I defended my dissertation, so I'm a graduate now. I'm pretty excited about that. I'm also an academic librarian in training, so I'm also enrolled at San Jose State because I'm crazy. So I joined you as an academic librarian in training. I'm passionate about improving representation for marginalized communities.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Marina. And Francisco, would you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Francisco Laso. I am assistant professor at the university, at Western Washington University. I teach geography here. And so really teaching how to make maps and why they matter and how they can be used to create a better world, I hope.
That is super awesome. Thank you so much, Francisco. I realized I didn't introduce myself formally. I'm this Andrés Vera. I'm the Student Program Engagement Manager, and I work with first-time faculty to get them to include a Wikipedia assignment in their class for the first time. Great. Again, thanks so much to our panelists here. Thank you so much to the team for making this day happen, and to our translation services. Thank you so much. I want to start with a big overview here, and this is everyone is gonna answer this question. But why is improving Wikipedia's coverage of Latina people and Latin American subjects important to you? And what is your relationship with Wikipedia? I'd love to hear from each of you. So we're going to start with Alma, please.
Okay, so I mean, like many of us, I've used Wikipedia, right, when you're Google something. And for me, my introduction to working with Wikipedia was I was part of this exhibition when I was in when the pandemic was happening. And so this exhibition has been traveling around to different cities, but it started at the Smithsonian. And so during the pandemic, we weren't able to attend events, but they had an event that was like a wiki thon, edit-a-thon. And at that time I was looking for something to do with my students because it was the pandemic. And that correlated with the fact that, as an artist, as a, Chicana Latinx artist and who teaches on Chicana and Latinx artists, I know that it's really hard to find um, materials when I'm teaching. And so, and the fact is that, many artists are not really highlighted in books or in articles, and that kind of stuff, and or even in exhibitions. And so, I know I have lots of artists, I mean, artist friends who don't have articles or don't have really a presence, even
Mhm.
online, because they might not have a web presence. And
Yeah.
so I knew that there was a gap here. And so for me, it was really important to look at that and also to ask my students to be activist, right? Artist, digital scholar activist, and help, all of us have a presence for the many amazing artists, some of them who have been working for decades and don't really have an online presence. So that would be.
That's awesome. Can you share the name of that book again? We didn't see what
Oh,
for our.
sorry. It's titled Printing the Revolution: The Rise and Impact of Chicano Graphics from 1965 to Now. And it was an amazing exhibition that opened during the pandemic, unfortunately, at the Smithsonian, and organized by some really amazing curators. And it has been traveling to different states throughout the US.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Alma. Francisco, same question for you. Why is improving Wikipedia's coverage of Latina and Latin American subjects important to you? And what is your relationship with Wikipedia?
Okay. Well, I think I can start with the second question first because my first relationship with Wikipedia, as with most people, is probably just searching for the things that we care about. That is
Mhm.
like was the first thing I would search for and a good starting point for to branch out for any type of inquiry. It was always a great resource, and in school we were always taught you shouldn't end your research there. It's a good starting point, but you
Yeah.
shouldn't end there. So I think that that was my initial relationship with it. And now, just this past year, I taught a course titled Extractivism and Its Alternatives in Latin America, where I encourage students to contribute to Wikipedia and to essentially pick one resource type
Mhm.
in Latin America and to expand on it, to do some like research and to expand the coverage on Wikipedia about it. I as to why it matters and why is it important, I usually start off my classes by teaching that all perspectives are partial perspectives, and that it is not until we engage in conversation with these
Mhm.
perspectives that we can have a broader picture, a more, in many ways, like a more objective. Like objective is really impossible to get to, but at the very least, something that we can reach some type of common ground, and and actually try to deal with the issues that, that our world has. So yeah, so expanding on different perspectives that don't usually have much exposure on such a widely dispersed medium such as Wikipedia is extremely important to get into
Yeah,
people's consciousness.
that's awesome. I what you're saying about getting into people's consciousness is sort of one of the reasons why I work at Wiki Education. It's because of this enormous impact that we have here, and that we actually, we don't know the possibilities of that impact. I also want to just encourage panelists here, if you have any questions for other panelists, to get involved and feel free to ask, if you're so inspired. Marina, same question for you. Why is improving Wikipedia's coverage of Latina people and Latin American subjects important to you? And what is your relationship with Wikipedia?
So I think it's important to ensure greater representation of Latina people. I think also it's important that we tell our own stories because we're
Mm,
coming from an asset-based perspective. A lot of what's
mm,
written about us, especially in education, is deficit-based and
mm,
focuses on the skills that we supposedly lack and why we're not doing as well. But it doesn't address the systemic issues that we face that other people don't have to. I also aim to increase visibility for first generation college students. Even today, a lot of people don't know what first generation college student means, and they get it confused with first generation in the country.
mm,
And I really want to contribute to nuanced portrayals of people because we're all so complicated. And even like Latine, it encompasses so many different ethnicities and backgrounds.
yeah.
So it's important to get at those. For my engagement, I engaged in edit-a-thons. One was focused on people of color, and another was focused on first generation college students. So it was going through famous people's profiles. I did the mayor of Stockton, I did some women basketball players, and adding to their profiles about them being first generation so that more people
Mm,
would know. And I just think that Wikipedia can be a powerful tool to foster inclusivity. And I'm committed to ensuring that underrepresented groups are celebrated and that, again, we're telling our own stories because we should be celebrated.
so awesome. And Oscar, please,
Yes, well,
same question.
same question. I started to realize that there was a gap of Latin information heritage when I was working in Latin America. Essentially, I wanted to reach out to people in the US working in Wikipedia because my background was doing workshops and doing editathons in Latin America. And I found out that it was really narrow the gap. That gave me like the idea, okay, this is something that we need to focus more. Then I moved to the US and I started to work with an organization called X. They did a research that tells you that the tier site, the most visited tier site in the internet, the whole internet, is Wikipedia for Latino, for people for
Mm,
Latino heritage. So it
oh,
is
wow.
important to see how consumed Wikipedia is to this day. They reach out to me and they tell me, we want to build a presence in Wikipedia for Latinos because we saw that the gap is huge, not only in English, but also in Spanish. And I can tell
Yeah.
you examples of where the gap lies, but it is across the board. It is heritage, it is sport, it is music, it is reproductive rights, it is everywhere across the board. So we're trying to map where the gap is. But the other
Yeah.
part is that the GAC have been there for 20 years. Wikipedia is a project that has 20 years. So if we
Mm,
cannot build a presence by our own, by people that care about this subject, that have the information, but also care about this subject, no one else is going to fill this gap. So I
mm,
propose to to the Wikimedia movement, my propose to Latina organizations, my propose to everyone that I teach, that have been teaching this for the last year is to try to build a community, of Latino editors of Wikipedia, not only consumers of information, but also people trying to battle this gap, trying to learn the policies, trying to learn the communities, how they work, how they can measure facts. Another important part of the research that we are being done is about disinformation and misinformation, and how Wikipedia, in a sense, serves you like a teacher, like how you can measure sources or reliable sources. It is there is a policy in Wikipedia called reliability, like it is called how you can measure the source and how you can measure if a source it is proper for an article. So we want to do that. And it's something without challenges, I can say this, because right now we are battling not only with Wikipedia, we're battling with social media, we're battling definitely many things, many aspects to try to gather people together to edit Wikipedia. We're trying different things, and it is thrilling, but again, it is a challenge to build a community in this Asian age.
Yeah. Something that resonates with me that you just said is this issue on social media, where it's really easy for people. It's really easy to be a consumer, and we're also working. We're also we need to balance. We need to balance that with people who are also becoming contributors, and it seems like that's the challenge that you're up against, Oscar, or that we are up against, rather. I'm going to get a little bit deeper, and I'm going to have specific questions for each of you here. And our first question is for Francisco. As a geographer, you've been studying the points at which human agriculture and wildlife meet. And your recent course that you mentioned that ran the Wikipedia assignment studied extractivism and its alternatives in Latin America. Could you talk about the impact that your students made on Wikipedia and what hopes you have for this knowledge being shared with broader communities?
Certainly. Well, so geography is this really interdisciplinary field, extremely interdisciplinary. It takes both the natural and the human dimensions under its same analysis. And so when I built this course and I set out to do this assignment, I was really encouraging students to explore across social, economic, environmental dimensions. So it's very broad, and that's why it was able to be centered around a particular resource, around a particular region, and they could really dig deep into it. In terms of the impact that the students had, I can only express my how proud I am of them, because as part of a editing community, they did really good job, I think, at actually using sources like primary sources for primary and secondary, sort of like peer-reviewed literature for the articles and did a pretty good backing up everything that they were saying, and I think that really how seriously they took the task is a big part of their impact, that what their contributions were pretty high quality. And they did also, a few things highlighting, they did a really good job at the interdisciplinarity. For example, one of the subjects that came up that most people are really surprised to learn about is how different industries like the avocado industry might be related with violence as it is being shipped across frontiers. And that's something that most people have no idea about. And this is something that the student that was researching this, who was from Mexico, knew about it. But so he had heard about it, he had seen it, but actually went in and did the research and was able to put the resources on there. Another big contribution, I think, was only a few students here spoke Spanish, but they understood the value of translating and developing the Spanish side of Wikipedia. And so
Mm.
one student, for example, developed the Wikipedia, actually went above and beyond and edited 2 articles, the English and the Spanish side, on the Industria de Petróleo de México,
Mhm.
Mexico's petroleum industry.
Yeah.
And so both of those contributions, both interdisciplinarity and and across languages, I
Sure.
think were their biggest in terms of quality more than quantity. That we really
Yeah.
we really valued quality over quantity in terms of contributions.
Yeah. That's awesome, Francisco. You should feel so proud. And you mentioned avocados. Avocados are just too expensive for me to eat these days now. Like, it's just like I'm okay not having avocados now. It's like really sad because I love avocados, but like, But again, to bring it back to the work that your students did, bringing awareness to topics that most people don't have an awareness of, and the violence that comes from the food that we eat is just so we're so, how do you say, displaced from where our food comes from. And this is to your point. Please.
I just like one, I guess, similarity with maps essentially that I do is like, and
Sure.
you were talking about the consciousness.
Yeah.
About bringing things to consciousness. There's the expression in English of like putting someone on the map, right?
Yeah.
That is literally, as a geographer, that's the power that one has when one is creating a map, that you can visibilize or invisibilize entire groups of people,
Mm.
whether or not you, depending on what you choose to include in the map. And I think that there's a strong parallel with what exists in Wikipedia, because oftentimes, like, to see, well, let's, like, when one is debating about a subject, one might think, well, let me check on this. Let me actually go into it, and like, I've heard about this, but let me check if this is actually true. And
Hmm.
especially in an age of AI where it's really hard to know like what to believe, I feel like efforts like Wikipedia are really gonna be very fundamental for people to tell apart what is true or what is not. Um,
Yeah.
and so really is a way of putting perspectives and stories and narratives on the map in people's
Yeah.
consciousness.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Marina, I have this next question's for you here. It's kind of long here, so bear with me. You have a unique perspective with Wikipedia, as you were a student participant in a social impact course by LT Reese Miles, or one of our dear professors in the program. And you created the Wikipedia article of the Puerto Rican biochemist Arnaldo Vasquez. And currently, as I understand it, your research and passion is focused on the experiences of Latina undergraduates using library resources before and during college. Dr. Corrales, this is awesome. Congratulations. We know that knowledge about Latin subjects and people is severely underrepresented on Wikipedia, and it's one of our goals to continue growing that kind of content on Wikipedia. Can you talk about your experience editing Wikipedia and share what advice you have for instructors and foundations like Wiki Education seeking to engage Latina students to get involved in the open knowledge movement, particularly on Wikipedia? And what are you noticing in undergraduate populations and their personal experiences with research, the library, and Wikipedia?
Sure. I'm going to break it down a little bit. So
Please,
first, I
yeah.
want to say, without being facetious, that participating in that course and Wiki Education changed my life. We were working on a STEM project to increase people of color, Latina specifically. And then I started looking for people that I admire, like Danny Solorzano at UCLA. And I realized that he didn't have a page, even though he's a prolific author and has been around for decades. So I decided
Mhm.
to create one. And
Mhm.
then Wiki Education education actually went and wrote an article about it. And I was trying to be brave, and I said that I wanted to be an academic librarian. And the dean of the library at Santa Clara University somehow saw that and invited me in for an interview. So I ended up working there, and that's where I am now, and actually where I'm conducting my research. So, I mean, when it changed my life, it really changed my life. Um,
Amazing.
yeah, and so I saw firsthand the importance of Latinx students being able to see themselves on this page or on this site because I didn't see it. I didn't see the education Chicanos that I saw. Angela Valenzuela, she's another one that I admire who also doesn't have a page. I'll probably work on her next now that I've graduated and have some more time. And I think from what I've learned in my research is that Latinx students, they really see a disconnect between using the library and conducting academic research with their lived experiences. So, for instructors and organizations to foster more meaningful participation, I think it's vital to create learning opportunities that align with students' cultural and academic identities and encourage students to engage with topics they are passionate about and show them how their voices can be part of a global conversation. And then I think of examples like right now, there was a Bracero exhibit at Santa Clara University, and one of my participants actually saw it. And she said that she went home and talked to her dad about it and didn't know that her family had actually been part of that program. And so she went on her own and started learning more and started having these conversations with her dad. So I think even the ripple effect of these, of how we can engage students and how it engages their family and encourages them to contribute meaningfully as knowledge creators, because a lot of time we're consumers, and with spaces like Wikipedia, we have the chance to say these stories and these people are important too. And so we need to add them because a lot of, especially with like curating materials in library science, it's about telling people what's important. What the institution values is isn't important, but we can contribute to that. So I think really what I want students to be able to do is create their own narratives. Um, and that's what I hope will come out of this.
Thank you so much, Marina. You made me all verklempt when you mentioned that we had this article. I remember when that article was created, when you wrote that article, and I didn't realize that the dean saw it, and that that's just really amazing to hear. We are so proud and of you, and you should feel so proud of yourself and the work that you're doing to really to bridge under these communities. And so we're so grateful to you. Thank you. Alma, your classes have focused on students creating biographies about Latina artists on Wikipedia. I think you might be responsible for the most Latina artists added to Wikipedia. And so can you please talk to us about your experience working with Wiki Education to make this enormous impact? And what advice would you give to faculty who want their students to contribute to Wikipedia?
Well, first of all, that's mind blowing to me. I mean, your story, Marina, was also pretty mind blowing. But for me, I am mind blown that we've been able to contribute that many articles on Latinx artists, primarily Chicana Latina, but also all other queer artists. And for our mission is very straightforward. It's very much about trying to place individuals who are creative artists, some of them who have been doing work for decades, but who have not been really, who kind of are invisible to some of us who are not in the arts, and really try to find publications. And it's actually a really high bar. Some people
Yeah.
think, oh, to do these biographies, you can't even, I mean, a lot of the students, first of all, come in having been told by their teachers in high school and even in university that Wikipedia is not that reliable, that anything you find online is not that reliable. And I always
Yeah.
tell students, well, we should question everything. We should always have a very healthy paranoia about everything that we hear and read and use our minds to really figure it out. I said, but what's really awesome about Wikipedia are the references that you find at the end of those articles. And for us in doing these artist biographies, that's actually a really high bar for us to find sometimes 2 or 3 really good, reliable, peer-reviewed, published articles, you know? And so we rely a lot on like that exhibition catalog I showed you, and other
Mhm.
exhibition catalogs to try to find that information. And so so our students become basically a research digital scholar activist, because they really, once they select an artist, and they often self-select them. I have a list, but they self-select them, and they go and they really become like investigators. And really, the most challenging thing, like I said, is finding these articles. But I, I, um, I encourage them throughout the quarter, and just tell them, you are being an activist, right? Because these
Mm.
artists are invisible; they're
Yeah.
totally not known, and so the work that we're doing is activist work. And I think because many of our students are very activist minded, that really encourages them and gives them that awareness. And so I'm just going to share a quote. I have quite a few quotes from different students, but this is one.
Please.
This is from a student who did an article just this last quarter on Sybil Venegas, who is a curator, Chicana curator who's written some important articles and also curated some important shows in Chicanx. And so this student, Anthony Garcia, said, this class and the Wikipedia project has reshaped my understanding of art, activism, and cultural identity. I now see
Mm.
art as more than an individual expression. It is a form of storytelling, resistance, and community building that shapes how we understand history and ourselves. And I think that is the goal, right? When you're teaching, you want students to be able to feel empowered to do this work and to know that they can make important contributions.
Yeah.
And I think that the Wikipedia project and the way that the WikiDU is set up really gives them a clear path. It's still challenging, but it gives them a clear path of how they can successfully contribute, um, you know, to this knowledge of, important individuals and that should be highlighted.
Thank you. You said you said that it is a challenge, and you particularly are, because Latinx artists are so, largely underrepresented in the greater context, and then asking your students to do something to find those niche articles is a challenge as well. And as an organization, we come across this same challenge amongst many of our classes when it comes to Black individuals and to Native American individuals and Latin individuals as well, in the broader context, about women also in the broader context. Knowledge about these groups of people are severely underrepresented in the larger context. So to bring that information to Wikipedia again is another level of deeper opening and finding this important information. So yeah, Alma, that's amazing. Again, I want to. There's so many more questions that I want to ask. I want to continue talking. So, but I want to jump to Oscar here really quickly. Oscar, your work spans the English Wikipedia and Spanish Wikipedia. Can you share with us the main differences between these two Wikipedias, and also share with us the makeup of communities involved and their demographics? Additionally, what you sort of touched on this a little bit, but what kind of barriers exist to greater community involvement on the Spanish Wikipedia?
Wow, this is it is like day or night. The Spanish Wiki, they have their own policies. For example, policies about how you interact with articles, how do you measure relevance, how you measure different things. The demographics for the Spanish Wiki are mostly people from Spain. For example, I'm going to tell you right away, the Latino, they don't recognize Latino because the Real Academia Española recognize Latino as people from the Latino people in Europe, for Italy and that. So it is a battleground to even the identification of a Latino, Latine. So you can see where that lies. So
Yeah.
we got projects. We're trying to give sources like, okay, we have a Latino population in the US, millions of people that identify with this matter. So, but again, with Wikipedias, and this is particularly true with the Spanish Wiki, you need to build consensus. I can go there, look, I only one person. So again, I'm going to tap in to try to build community. I think having teachers here and trying to build community with their students, it is important. Because the lack of information is bigger in the Spanish Wiki than in the English Wiki. You can find, for example, a salsa artist, real popular in Puerto Rico, and there is only an article in English. And it was mind-blowing for us to don't see an article in Spanish. So, okay, Puerto Rico speaks Spanish. What is the problem? Well, there is many problems. Lack of access to internet, lack of resources, many problems in Latin America. So my speech for a student specifically is to see, well, you can build this article in English and Spanish, and someone in Honduras, in El Salvador, I'm going to beneficial for them because it's going to be the only piece of information for them to knowledge. So in a sense, you are measuring impact in that way. Like, okay, there are people that doesn't have the information anywhere in the world, and you are going to be building that information. The other thing that I want to tap in is measure the degree of involvement. For example, building an article from the scratch is really, really hard. It's dificilissimo.
Yeah.
It is like, I will say that for a student perspective, it's going to be like a thesis. It's going to be really hard. So you need to build like a basic level of involvement. Like, okay, let's take some pictures. There is a media repository called Wikimedia Commons where you can take pictures, you can have videos, and you can incorporate this to Wikipedia articles. And it is really amazing for us to see how an article, it is more viewed if they have more picture attached to them. If an article is a wall of text, I don't know, less people are going to look for that article. If an article have a good illustration, a good picture, more people are going to pay attention to an article. They're going to see, this is really interesting to pay attention. And that level of engagement is really basic for a student because they have the camera, they have things ready, and we can work with libraries as well, that they have repositories of pictures and videos as well. The other thing that we're trying to tap in is Wikidata. Wikidata is like the big data for Wikipedia that can structure all the data between all the encyclopedias. So you can start an article in Wikidata with the basic information about a biography or a historical perspective. And that could be like a really good way to involve people. And it is really easy because it's only typing information, basic information about the subject, and not necessarily you need to write the article. So another thing that I want to tap in is that you need to build persistent curiosity, meaning that if you are going to give an assignment to a student, they're going to react negatively to the assignment. They're going to see, what I'm going to do this. So with curiosity, it's like, okay, Wikipedia, it is the source of all knowledge. It is the de facto library of the world, of the internet as a whole. So building that community with curiosity is going to teach them, oh, this is important because I can write about things that I like, not necessarily things that are being taught, and I can build knowledge for everyone in the world in like as a hobby, because I started as a student as well. I started to do this as a hobby, and I can share some articles that I did when I was a teenager. So it is a sense of faith, of building curiosity, and not necessarily to see them as a, yeah, I'm going to do this homework and I'm going to be finished with it. So yeah, I think the difference are big. The Spanish wiki, there is definitely a lack of not only Latino editors, but also Latin American editors. So it is a lack of editors altogether. The English one is not is a little bit better, but there are also gaps in there about who is building the article. We're still trying to comprehend the gap. We are doing many lists of articles that are missing. Trying to see also with academia where the gaps lies and where you can find the sources. And to the comment of Alma, finding the sources or try to find reliable sources pre-internet, like 80s, 70s song is really difficult for us. And yeah, I think it's, again, it is going to be a challenge, because I think what we're building here and trying to build a community of people with Latin heritage, try to fill this gap is going to be amazing.
Thank you so much, Oscar. One of the things that you mentioned that really stuck with me about Puerto Rico is this lack of internet access, and how that's a big barrier for Latin American communities to contribute to Wikipedia. Puerto Rico is part of the United States, and Wiki Education can get involved in Puerto Rico, but one of the barriers, like you mentioned, is this access to the internet. Hurricane Maria really did a number on Puerto Rico, and people are still suffering from that hurricane, and people still don't have everything back, and especially institutions. It's so it really what you're touching on, and sort of these barriers, and also the sort of, I didn't realize how underdeveloped and how few actual Latins work on the Spanish Wikipedia. And our hope here, of course, is that we get more awareness about these gaps here. All right, so thank you so much, everyone. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to our audience Q&A here. And we're going to go ahead and answer them live. And in the interest of time, if we can answer them quickly, I'd be super grateful, because I also have one really special question for you at the end. So this is for anyone who wants to take it. How do you figure out where to focus, where there are gaps to steer your students towards? This would be for Francisco or Alma, or if Marina, you feel like jumping in here as well, or Oscar, anyone.
Well, in the very beginning of class, we brainstorm all the artists that we know for each class. And, it's always, we have large numbers of students who know a large number of white male European artists. And then like maybe like 30% are women, and then maybe like a really small fraction are Chicanx, Latinx artists, female, identified. And so therefore, that's where we start. We start wherever the class is, and then they start brainstorming other artists that they find, usually through like social media or their own circles, right? Artists that they know, because I mean, artists are born every day, and so that's where we start, from
Wonderful.
themselves and their own interests in their own artists.
And
That's awesome. Go ahead, Francisco.
As part of the training in Wiki Education, one of the tools that we were pointed our attention to is the rating system that each article has. So there's ratings for how developed they are. And so, because as Oscar said, like in our class, we had curiosity drive students and their subjects, but then they had to be a good judge of how easy a task taking on a particular subject would be. Starting a new article, as Oscar said, is extremely hard, but contributing to an existing article is much easier. But so then the recommendation would be go with one that is less developed, and so anything like from a C rating or below. Those that are B or A rating, would already be pretty well developed, and so maybe work on a different subject was our recommendation.
Thank you so much, Francisco. Okay, this is from Mary Clark. How do expectations for wiki assignments differ from an introductory level undergraduate course like modern Latin American history to an upper level, more specific thematic or topical course? Do any of you have experience in working with lower level versus introductory level versus upper level students?
Most of my students are in the upper, courses. So yeah, so actually that's a great question.
Sure, I can.
The one
Go
thing
ahead.
that we do is what's really there is a high bar for new articles, and that's what
Mhm.
basically they create. But one of the things is that there's all the research and the references and doing annotated references, but there's no limit on or no assignment on word count, so it's instead of like in these upper division courses where there's usually like 10-page papers or 20-page research papers. We don't do that. It could be,
Um,
of 25 words if that's how all you're going to be able to get from the references. But usually it's a lot more than that, so yeah.
I would add at either level to pair students up or even put them in groups to work on pages because that
mhm.
makes it seem less scary. It's really up to you how many you assign, but I think once they start looking and they see who's missing, I think Francisco's idea to look at low rating pages is amazing. So if you could assign a few of those in groups, I think it would be less intimidating.
Thank you. And Mary, feel free to get in touch if you have more specific questions. And then I'm going to jump to Mary. Thank you. You have a couple questions in there. I'm gonna get back to you as well. But this question is from Hannah. Hannah says, "Thanks for these wonderful insights. I'm wondering if any of you have advice for doing outreach with students, the broader campus community for Wikipedia editing events. At my library, we sometimes teach classes on Wikipedia editing, and we do an annual art and feminism Wikipedia editathon. But it's difficult to get students interested in participating in Wikipedia editing outside their regular courses. Do you have any ideas or experiences with getting students engaged with Wikipedia editing outside the classroom?"
I would say coming hot off of the undergraduate interviews, one of the things they want is for collaboration between them and another organization. In my experience, it was the library,
Mm,
but so they had the Latino Student Union and they were asking, why can't they come to us and do a presentation? So I think collaborating
mm,
with them and actually being in settings that aren't necessarily the classroom because they feel like they have more agency.
I love that advice. Thank you, Marina. Anyone else have any thoughts on this?
I will add having wiki clubs. There is a few of wiki clubs, like student run clubs about editing Wikipedia articles. Try to give ownership to them. Like, okay, you
Yeah.
are deciding what you write, what you're going to do. And yes, there is definitely like a way to contribute in that direction. Like not necessarily a teacher directing a homework to a student, but students gathering themselves, having their wiki activities, and trying to find their like. And I think wiki Latina unions as well could be like a good way to segue this.
Yeah, I love both of you mentioned the Latina unions and Latin clubs as well as really and collaborations with other organizations is right on. That's awesome. That's we always forget about these possible collaborations. That's what Wiki Education is working on. There's so many people to collaborate with, and so we definitely want to do more of that as well. This again, I thank you so much for that question, Hannah. I got another question here from Mary. She says, "Many of my students do not speak or read Spanish or Portuguese. Some are heritage speakers, but do not have confidence in reading or writing in Spanish or Portuguese. How can I encourage knowledge creation or revision on Wiki if many primary and peer-reviewed sources are in Spanish or Portuguese?
I think you can use sources that are not originally in the language that you're writing. You can use sources in English and you're translating that sources to a Wikipedia article in Spanish or vice versa. It would be preferable to have a source in Spanish or in Portuguese, but it is not always the case. Sometimes it is difficult to find the source, even in English.
Yeah.
So just to have 2 or 3 reliable sources, you can start an article of a biography, for example. But definitely try to aim for the local sources. It is not a necessity, and the Spanish wiki doesn't have any policy to say. In the Portuguese, I think it is quite the same.
I would say just adding, I'm on the collaboration kick right now, maybe partnering up with the modern language department at your university, having a professor volunteer to check through the work so that students feel confident in what they're writing. And if there is a mistake, they can catch it. It's no big deal because it hasn't been published.
That's awesome. Thank you, Marina. Yes, definitely figure out way. We have a lot of professors in the program who make it a grade for their students to go visit the library or to visit the writing center as well. This is easy. You can easily make it you can easily make it a participation grade for your students checking in with the modern language department at your institution as well. We have about 2 minutes before I want to jump into partnering with language departments. Thank you. Yes, Francisco. We have 2 minutes to answer more questions. Does anyone have any more questions in our audience here? And I'm going to go ahead. If not, I can go ahead and ask one final question. Just maybe I'll pick on someone to answer this. I think this is actually a great question for Alma. Alma, we're living through a time of great upheaval in how information is produced, consumed, and shared. What role do you think Wikipedia has to play in our current information landscape in general within higher education and Latin American communities in particular?
I think the role is incredibly important for any like truth kind of and well-researched knowledge that can be shared. I think especially if we think of ourselves as activists, right? Where we're really trying to find what's missing, what's the information that's missing, or what information is perhaps needs a different perspective, and so therefore finding those references and then sharing them. So in a way, doing a kind of like what do they call those? Like correcting misinformation, right? But using it based on already documented research. I think that because that's what you have to do with Wikipedia. It's not just opinion. And I think what's really great, what I really appreciate and was, kind of sometimes difficult for my students is that even the way that it's written, right, that it's really about no judgment, right? It's just like whatever information you find, you place it and you write about and you include it. No judgment, even if it's like, wow, I think this is the most amazing, incredible artist, right? We do that in class when we're sharing and doing presentations for each other. But I think that I really like in a way that, look, this is just the facts, what we've been able to find, even if we don't find everything. We, are now at a point where we're going back and improving articles by following up on them and find more information. So I think it's incredibly important to have reliable, truthful information based on facts at this point.
What you're mentioning here is also this reiterative process where students come back to the work that they're doing, and that also, where knowledge is always changing, and things are changing. If anyone, please feel free to jump in if you have any final thoughts on this, and then we'll do our wrap-up question here if any of you have any thoughts.
I think let me just follow up with that.
Please, yeah.
We in class we talk about identity and what we choose to call ourselves, right? And so I think that as you're saying, things change, and so I think that identities change and evolve as we move along, and we ask each other, uh, ourselves and each other questions. So I know that there's at least for me, there's a very specific kind of trajectory in terms of like Mexican American, Chicano or Chicano, Chicana feminist, and there's a whole kind of process. And so even now with the either the E at the end or the X, or the X in the beginning, right? There's very specific, but I think it's a very specific evolvement of awareness and knowledge that's going on.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you so much. All right, my final question for everyone, and I'll go ahead and choose you one by one. What are your two favorite Wikipedia articles about Latino, Latinx, Latina people, and Latin American topics that you want our audience to read? Go ahead and add your answers to the whole webinar chat. I'll also share them live with us right now so that our audience can have the opportunity to read them. So you make sure that you share it so that everyone can see. Make sure you click everyone so that everyone can see it. Awesome. Oh, this is great. Thank you. Do any of you want to talk about them with our last couple of minutes here? Marina, you talk. Are those articles that you created?
The first one is the one I created, so I'm definitely biased. I'll put that out there.
Oh, great.
But
You should be so proud.
But he's also a prolific author that talks about microaggressions and campus climate in higher education. So I think his work is important. And the next one is the civil rights leader. So, I mean, especially in the times we're in right now, it's important to know about our history.
Yeah. Alma, what about yours?
Mine was when we were researching for an artist, we were reading an article titled Chicano Futurism. And one of the main artists in that article, Marian Martinez, did not have an article, a Wikipedia article. So that was Marian C. Martinez, whose work I totally love and adore. She's from New Mexico. And so then a student did that. And then more recently, the student who I quoted earlier did an article collaboratively with another student on the curator, Sybil Venegas. So, I mean, I have many favorite articles from my students.
Yeah, I bet you. Yeah, I know you do. Oscar, how about yours?
Well,
Tell us about yours.
I choose one a story on Hispanic Latino Americans in the United States. But I also share, talking about gaps, I will refer to this big gap of articles that already have an article in English Wikipedia, but have missed anything from sources for technical problems, in a sense to see how big the gap is, because I know that that's something that everyone is looking for their courses. You can see of this list, it is massive, but that's the reality like it is.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And you, Francisco, how about you?
I am sharing the two articles that I mentioned earlier that were edited by my students, the avocado production in Mexico, as well as the petroleum industry in Mexico, both in the English and Spanish versions, and people will be able to see just how different the coverage are. Like in both languages, you'll see that the English version, even though it's in Mexican industry, is much more developed than the one that the Spanish one is, which the student created anew. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much to you all, our panelists. I learned so much more as a Puerto Rican man. I'm so glad to connect with you all and to learn more about my own heritage and the gaps that we're all working together to fill. Again, thank you so much. We have a staff member who's going to add some important links to the chat right now. If you are a post-secondary instructor and you're feeling inspired to teach with Wikipedia, After this talk, visit teach.wiki.edu.org. And if you're interested in learning how to contribute your expertise to Wikipedia, visit learn.wiki.edu.org to explore our upcoming course offerings. This is the end of Gaps and Growth Enhancing Latino, Latinx, Latina, and Latin American Content on Wikipedia. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us. And I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much, everyone.